Hey, welcome to Beats, Beds, and Browns, your spot for emerging hip hop artists, garden interests from homestead to commercial ag, bourbon and whiskey distillers. I'm your host, Joe Skibby, and we're pleased to have made the jump to live stream interviews in this, our third season. This not only allows us to interview folks from throughout the globe, but potentially add a second season of interviews early in 2024, a la a 3B, season 3B. Our focus will always be Chicagoland and the region. There's so many talented individuals out there we can cut it up with who love music, gardening, and brown. Let's not forget our mission to distribute 100,000 heirloom seed kits over the next 10 years. We want to introduce people to growing their own food and realizing how easy it is to get started. Whether you've got acres or just a balcony, you can start growing your own food. Get started with a free seed kit at beatsbedsbrowns.com. Tap into our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Beats Beds Browns. Make sure you gently press the subscribe button on YouTube to get notified of our content releases. And please participate in the comments section throughout our live content. We do want to hear from you. Happy planting to those of us joining after the live taping. And without further ado, I'd like to bring Chef Sakari Smithwick to the screen.
Boom, 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 boom.
Hey, Chef, giving us a little heart palpitation there. We're happy you're here. You're excited to cut it up, man. We've been testing out live stream on Instagram, promoting the show and all the different biographical factoids that we were able to pick up and research. But you're here now. You're live. Where you been? Where you at? And where you going, man?
Man, I'm so excited to be here. Where I'm at, I'm in New York. Yeah, man, just been grinding, bro.
Nice. We've seen it, man. U.S. Open, sipping with Sakari. I just saw us coming back.
Oh wow,
all different tastes and bites, and
just trying to, man. I think like going all in on social media, it's like a decision, and so I've just been focused on, how can I build my brand, and how can what's the best way to do that, and how can I help people. And like, if you have good intentions, the only thing that matters is, how many eyeballs are on you, as long as you have good intentions, of course. But man, just been building, grinding. And as I could say the same about you, man, building and grinding. How are things with you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We've got friend or foes cutting it up in the garden. We've got how's it growing. We're doubling down on the content production and really enjoying the opportunity that it is providing to have these conversations with people with intersecting and overlapping interests. And I know food scarcity and food insecurity. The culinary arts is a closet passion of ours. All this food that we grow, we end up making magnificent homegrown meals for our family. More nutrients, more color. We're eating the rainbow for sure. But let's take it back to the beginning, man. I know you got a Michelin star now, but started on the line at Mickey D's. I was a Burger King guy, so I won't hold that against you. But
the Whopper is not bad, man. The Whopper is good. I used to. I remember back in high school, man. I had no idea what I was doing to my body, but like, well, I was young too. But we used to go to practice, and then after practice, we would walk to Burger King every single day. Every single day. We used to get a Whopper, or I think it was like a double cheeseburger or something. And we used to get the zesty sauce. You had to get the zesty sauce.
Okay.
It was a sauce that the onion rings used to go on. You put it on your burger, mix that with a special sauce, and oh man, it was delicious.
Nice. See, I spent a holiday break working at Burger King, so the food would sit up there and they'd be like, throw it out. And I'd be in the back just gnawing on it. I'd gain like
going on it, yeah, man.
In like a 3-month period. It was crazy.
100%. Dude. You never know how bad that stuff is until, later on in life and stuff. But for me, the beginning, man, I mean, you hit it right on the nail, man. Like McDonald's, that's where I started off at. I thought that was going to be my career path, too. Like, they didn't even want me to go to college. This dude, there's this general manager named Joe. He was like, yo, don't go to college. It's like, at the moment those words came out of his mouth, I was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here. What is this dude talking about? He's like, don't go to college, man. Just stay here. And I thought that was gonna be my career path. I thought I was gonna own 10, 15 McDonald's one day, and like that was gonna be the best thing in the world. Went to college, and the only reason I went to that college was because it was right next door to a McDonald's, actually.
Okay.
So I worked there for like a week, dude. I worked at McDonald's for about a week, and I was like, I hate it. This is terrible, because I didn't realize the different, fast food restaurants had different levels and stuff like that. So it's like, I hate it. This is terrible. And I was upstate New York, and I was just like, man, like, let me give this cooking thing a shot. I did some cooking stuff in high school, and let me just, whatever. I felt
Did
like,
you have home economics? Was there a culinary track for electives or whatnot?
funny story about that was that there was this teacher that really didn't give off good energy to me. Like, she didn't like me. That's what I thought. And she stopped me one day, like, as she was walking by, and she was like, Sakari, like, you have a natural knack for this thing. Like, do you cook at home? And I was like, yeah. Like, before that, she never even said 2 words to me. After that, she stopped me in the hallway every day for the rest of my high school career, ended up recommending me for advanced cooking classes, which all the cooking class that we did was like the first year of culinary school. So when I got to culinary school, I was like kind of ahead of the game in a sense. And that put me in a good spot because I'm not really a great like grades and type of person. But I made it all the way through, got my associates in culinary arts, got my bachelor's in restaurant management, did the whole thing,
So you've
became
got the food safety background, you've got the
all
aesthetic
that.
presentation, you've got the which herbs and spices go with which flavor profiles, all that coming out.
Yeah, man. I knew I didn't have to go to college to cook, but like I think halfway through, I talked to my advisor, and he was just like, he's like, if you go to another school, you're just gonna be another number. Like, he's like, I'm gonna take care of you, and he did. His name is James Margiata. Huge shout out to James Margiata.
Nice.
He's been like a father figure for me. Really beautiful soul of a man. I just saw him maybe a couple months ago. I went upstate to go visit him. Really great man, and he took care of me. He kept his promise, and I became student chef of the year. We won a gold medal for Team USA. We went out to Costa Rica to face other, teams across the world, and we ended up beating all of them, which was crazy.
Why
And
Costa Rica? Was there a
it was just that
Southern
year. That's
hemisphere
what
kick, or that's
that year. That's where the competition was.
okay?
They did it different places for different years, but I mean, we were going up against Germany and Paris and other, South
Had you ever
countries.
left the country prior to that?
Maybe like once when I was a kid, you know
Okay.
what I mean? And then I left there. I was like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. This is what food does, is it brings you to other
Yeah.
places. This is incredible. And I mean, man, it was so eye-opening, dude. Like, the way that they keep food over there is totally different, than over here. But so much flavors
Did
and
they have the open air markets and
yeah, like lots of different markets. The food was just kind of like laying out for hours at a time. And I was like, oh my God, like the chicken's not in the refrigerator. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? This is crazy. But people over there, it's different. It's just different cultures. And man, I loved it. Just didn't want to come home. It was so much fun. People were mad at me that I didn't speak Spanish. I look a little Hispanic, but it was fun, man. One student chef of the year, won that competition, and then I got into Maria, which was 2 Michelin stars at the time. It was the only Italian restaurant in all of North America with 2 Michelin stars, ran by Michael White, who was like a really amazing chef. He's still an amazing chef, and learned a lot there. And I heard of this thing called 11 Madison Park, and I was like, what is that? And then it was the best restaurant in the North America at the time. It was number 4 in the world. And I knew nothing about, 3 stars. I knew nothing about the food. I didn't even know what they served. I was just like, yo, like, I want to be the best. So like, I gotta go there. I gotta get there. Man, I tried everything, bro. I, cold called, the chef of 11 Madison Park came in. I asked the server, hey, can I go talk to him? They're like, you're going to get fired. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was no, I went up there I even went in the kitchen one time, and I was nervous. I snuck in, dude. They're like, you have an appointment? I'm like, yeah. Snuck in, and all you hear is them shouting "oui," which is yes in French.
Yeah.
And I go in there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I had my resume. I was trembling with the resume, passed it to the chef, and he's like, yeah, we'll contact you. Never contacted me. Reached out like 3 weeks straight, 4 weeks straight, heard nothing. And then what ended up being the thing was I DM'd someone named Vinny. Huge shout out to Vinny, amazing chef. He's the chef de cuisine out in Napa Valley right now at Press Restaurant, which is a Michelin star restaurant. So huge shout out to him. I DM'd him. I was like, yo, you're from Massapequa, which is a town over for me. And I was like, I'm from Farmingdale. I'm like, dude, we're rivals. And I was like, by the way, I want to work at this place really bad.
Why this restaurant? Just because you had to be at the best? Nothing else?
I had to be at the best. Yeah.
And what were you doing? Were you working in the meantime, or was it this or nothing?
I was working at Maria, and I
Yeah,
knew that
so
I
they
just
overlap.
Yeah, it was just overlapping. And literally, I was working at Maria, and I had no idea what I was getting myself signed up for. And I was like, man, I just gotta like, I just want to be the best. That's all I knew. I just want to be the best. And so anyway, I DM'd Vinny. He ended up getting me a stage. When I say stage, that means that like it's a day. It's like an interview that you go in for a day and you interview.
Is that like
Chef loved
half
me.
day, shadow the cook? You're working through all the different
Yeah, like
departments.
you get thrown in the fire, you go in there, and then like they ask you to cook some stuff, or you like help some people and see if they like you, whatever. Chef was like, "Yo, Chef Lockwood, amazing chef." He's like, "I liked you from the moment that you came in." And long story short, I ended up getting a job, and I ended up starting there. And I remember, I think my last day at Murray was Friday, and I think I started Monday at 11 Madison Park, which was unheard of in that world, because when I was telling everybody, they're like, "Are you crazy?" They're like, "Dude, like, do you know what you're about to go do? Like, you need to take a break." And I was like, "No, no, no, we're just gonna go right into it." Went right
Just
into
from
it.
the daily grind and the intensity of it all.
Right, exactly. Like, you
Yeah.
need a break. Didn't take a break. I was filming Chopped at the time at Maria, which was fun.
Yeah.
I was like 21 years old or something. And then I started 11 Madison Park. And 11 Madison Park at that time ended up being the #1 restaurant in the world. So it went from #4 to #1. And then it was 3 Michelin stars, #1 restaurant in the world. They were filming a documentary at that time too. And it's just like at the height of everything.
Yeah.
And I was just there, just a little young cook, just like trying to keep up.
What an incredible moment and an intersection of all your experiences to that point.
Insane, dude. Insane. And people don't really know or realize about that type of stuff. When I mentioned I was on Hell's Kitchen or whatever, like, I was this past season, people's eyes light up. But if I mention about 11 Madison Park, which to me was a pivotal point of my career, they're like, what? So it was special, man. It was very hard, it was very difficult, but I learned so much, and it was something that helped me open up a lot of doors for me in the future.
So, how do you get from behind the grill or behind the kitchen door to Smithwick Provisions to
To
Noble
everything I'm
Promise,
doing.
Noble
Yeah.
Studios? Yeah.
So, I was working there. I worked at a few other restaurants, did a Black Chef's food tour, and
Was that nationwide or regionally or?
yeah, went to Seattle for a little bit. Went to DC, worked for some like other famous Black chefs because I want to learn more about my culture.
Yeah.
Came back. I missed fine dining because there's a difference, right? Like if you work in a regular restaurant, there's nothing against it. It's just a different level of everything, like it's different. And I missed the fine dining. I missed that love and passion for it. So I ended up working with a chef named Marco Prinz. And, man, it was an incredible time. We had a restaurant in the Lower East Side, and it was just me and him. That was it. We had menu items we had menu items on the menu. Guests came in, they loved the food, and we ended up winning a Michelin star together.
Man.
And it was crazy. It was incredible. But the restaurant had to close down, which was crazy. Because there was no social media presence. We had a great product, but nobody knew about the product.
Right.
And so after that, he helped me get to Europe. I went out to Europe, lived out of Europe, worked at some really great restaurants out there in the Netherlands, and then pandemic hits. And when the pandemic hit, everybody's life changed when the pandemic hit, and I had all this time. And so I was like, man, the restaurant just closed. I need to learn about marketing. I need to learn about business. I need to learn about social media. Like, what is this thing? Because if you're a real, I don't want to say if you're a real chef, but if you're in it, and you're like head down and about your craft, like you don't have time, quote unquote, or you don't prioritize social media and all that type of stuff. You prioritize your gift, your
You're
craft.
like an artist. Like
you're an
focus on
artist.
your craft. Yeah.
100%. You're an artist. And so, I went to college for business, and then, obviously like starting to learn. So I knew it was important. I always saw chefs like kind of own the restaurant, and I knew it was important. So that's kind of how I got introduced to Gary Vee. And because he was the only person that gave away his content for free. Everybody else was like, hey, we're going to give you this for free, but just kidding. We're going to make you sign up for something, and I'm like, oh man. And it was from people that I really like looked up to and stuff. At that time, there was no model of like free content. A lot more people do it now, but it was the only thing that was free. So that's the only reason I kind of listened to him. And I backtracked and I learned so much in like that little short amount of time during COVID, because I was just watching all his videos, literally would fall asleep to his videos.
Had you crossed paths with Gary before the pandemic, or that was you just?
No, I heard of him. Because someone was like, "You got grit. You should go look up Gary Vee." And I was like, "Who's Gary Vee?"
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then and then that's kind of how I got introduced to him. And then later on in the pandemic, that's when I really started to learn. And it
Nice.
was like the height of the sports card. I started buying a whole bunch of sports cards while I was in Europe, getting them sent to my house in New York. I was like, I was in it, dude. Um, that's kind of how I learned about NFTs and all that type of stuff. And I was in Europe and I was like, it wasn't that much different from being, it's like riding a bike. If you can ride a bike in New York, you can ride a bike in Europe when it comes to cooking.
Yeah.
And so even though they don't speak the same language, if you know how to cook, you can cook anywhere in the world. And so I understood that once I was there in Europe enough, and I was like, I need to like just do my own thing. And so I called a buddy of mine's, Kelsey. We created the logo, Noble Promise, right here. My name, Sakari, in Swahili means noble promise, which
Nice.
means you have a promising future and you keep to your word. And I just hit the ground running, man. Came back. I started doing resident pop-ups. So I partnered up with a company called Resident. We took like condos, apartments, anything that we could find. And we turned it into my restaurant concept. So we, decorated the art. We put on the 90s R&B, the hip hop. We had my menu. Like, it was fire.
A whole scene.
People,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's an experience. And we started doing that. And then I started pitching business and things like that. And then I started to learn that restaurants don't make any money. I didn't know that, or how hard a restaurant business is. And so at that time, I was learning about Gary and social media and stuff. And I was like, we started to pivot from just doing pop-ups and focusing on a restaurant to prioritizing media. Because we were like, if we can build an audience, if we can, build out a media and we can control our entity, our intellectual property, well, then, we could build something here. So that's kind of how it started. It was like a pop-up and then it transitioned into media, Noble Promise Studios. Then NFTs got crazy. We dropped our own NFT collection. And we had a few sales, started to get, scratched our itch a little bit. I minted V Friends, which was Gary V's NFT project, for like 1,500. I sold one of my NFTs for like $45,000. It's the biggest like return of my life. Everybody's
Talk
like,
about
oh my
time
God,
in
I
the
can't.
market. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's like, I didn't even time it. I thought I didn't time it. Like
It
I
was
thought I was
fire.
selling under. That
Yeah.
was at the height. I was like mad. I sold it at 45,000,
Right.
and then 2 months later, a month later,
So were you
it,
in? You had been watching all during the pandemic. Were you in during book games? You got in
yeah,
on
I was
VF1.
OG. I'm super
Yeah.
OG in the
Yeah.
in the whole thing. Like I was there when Gary went on Instagram live and was like, "This is gonna change your life. Like if you ever want to invest in me, this is it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my God!" I looked up at heaven. I was like, "Oh my God, is this it? Like, is this the moment?" And so I had to. I didn't have $1,500, and so I'm a Michelin star chef that worked in some of the world's best restaurants, right? And but I was at that time I was grinding,
Yeah.
and I was like investing in myself, so I had no money. I called up a buddy of mine's, Chef Mark, and he was doing catering outside of a Chinese restaurant. And I was like, you know what? I'll do it. And so I literally worked inside of a Chinese, I called it a Chinese sweatshop. It was so small. There was no room anywhere. It was like it was terrible experience. Terrible experience. I learned how Chinese food was made, obviously. But we were packaging up meals for nurses and stuff, and that's how I got paid. And I was able to get paid from that because you make good amount of money from catering. And I took that money and I invested in V Friends. And the only reason I invested was because my girlfriend at the time, she said they have a noble one. And I was like, oh, they have a noble one. And
Nice.
so I wasn't going to invest in V Friends. I was looking at it and the clock was coming down. And I was like, I just don't know. This is
That
the
was the
most money.
original Dutch auction. The
Yeah, it
reverse.
was Dutch auction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the most money I ever had. Like
Yeah,
$1,500.
I'm
Like
gonna get rid of it.
I don't want to spend it on something I'm not sure about. But then when I saw Noble Numbet, I said, you know what? If I can build my brand right to the point where Gary wants to work with me, well, then it's me betting on myself, and we could do something together with Noble Numbet.
So taking a step back from your Michelin chef, how do you end up with no money? Were you investing in
Dude, I was
Smithwick
invested in
Provisions?
myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah. So
mean,
you were doing all the business and all
I
the
went to
Smithwick.
Europe. So I went to Europe, and then like I wasn't getting paid much in Europe, and
Okay.
then like I spent
Like
all
I
my
hear
money.
Michelin chef, I think like Bugattis and
Like,
there's a lot
right. No, no, none of that.
of
What you get is burns and you get tired, you get sleep
yeah.
deprived. That's what you get.
Oh man. I know it's
Um,
rough. Yeah, it's grind.
yeah, it's you don't make a lot of money. And so I was out in Europe and I was just grinding, and then all the money that I made out in Europe. At first, my first month, I didn't make any money in Europe. I literally worked for free,
Hmm.
and then I told him, I said, I can't work for free anymore. And then he ended up paying for my housing. He ended up paying me under the table and all that type of stuff. And then once I started getting paid, I just invested it into my content. I started my content because I was so inspired by what Gary was talking about. I was like, I'm gonna start my YouTube channel. Started my YouTube channel, started vlogging. This was when you had a big camera. You didn't have an iPhone.
Yeah.
Like this was, this was back in the day. And
The
just
Sony
really,
Minicam, yeah.
yeah, dude, just put all my money into food. I was eating at the best restaurants in Europe. Like I was the only black person, only young kid and anywhere to be seen.
So,
I was
we
eating,
used to work in the nightclub scene in Chicago in our youth, and there
yeah,
was Club Courtesy. Like, did you get the
okay.
same thing at restaurant? Like, do you get restaurant courtesy? You
That's
go
what I
in,
was
you know
about to.
all.
That's what I was about to go to. Which I was emailing them. I said, "Hey, I've worked at 11 Madison Park. Just like hey, like
Yeah,
I was worked at 11 Madison Park." And then they're like, "Oh my goodness, yeah, we can definitely find a seat for you because these are restaurants that are booked out."
yeah,
And I was emailing them the day before, 2 days before, like, "Hey, my name's Chef Sakari. I've worked here." It was a big deal to work at the
yeah.
number one restaurant in the
Well, to
world
get in
and
on
being a
short
young cook.
notice, like, yeah, there's some prestige there, and
You know what I mean? So like they were like, "Hey, oh my God, we'd love to have you." And they, came in and they gave me the Michelin book and they talked to me, showed me the kitchen, they gave me the whole thing. So I spent all my money on food,
please
man.
tell me
And
you had your significant other on your arm right then, and you were
my
able to impress.
significant other was me, dude. I was grinding. I
That's
was
like a total killer, impressive moment
dude,
right there.
dude, I was in Paris and I was like, I understood why, this is the city of love. And I was by myself, dude. I was, just by myself, just traveling, spending money. And then, yeah, bro, came back, and then that's when COVID was, and a lot of stuff wasn't happening with COVID.
Yeah.
Didn't have any money, and yeah, bro. And then just found a job. I was just investing in myself, really.
Yeah, and I mean, I got involved with in the late portion of book games and VF2. I wasn't able to jump into VF1. We're obviously
Okay,
eyeballing entry points now.
right, hundred
The whole
percent,
market's down, so we're counting our
100%.
losses, licking our wounds. But that whole, I've been to VCon year 1 and year 2. Looking forward to LA this year. Um, Tell me how you turned that passion and belief in Gary into the sorcerer apprenticeship, and what's
Yeah.
going on with that.
So before we get into that, just real quick, this is not financial advice, but
Yeah.
I just want to say, guys, if you're listening to this and you're like, what is VFriends? What is an NFT and all that type of stuff? And you do have some money, it might be a good idea to like look into NFTs and look into Gary Vaynerchuk and what he's doing over at VFriends. Um, I do think it's important to invest your money, even if it's not in that, like invest in stocks or invest in whatever you know or believe in, because that's the only way we can get out of this rat race, you
Yeah,
know. So that was just a good little sub message. How did I
absolutely.
get to the Sorcerer Scholarship? I I applied and I got denied. I got denied, and I remember
Because
I
there
was
were
in the
thousands of applicants, right? This
there
was
was thousands. Yeah, dude. There
yeah.
was like so many people applying for this thing. And I was like, oh my God, it's my big break. I saw Andy at the street at NFT NYC and I was like, told him my whole story. And I got the idea from John Henry, who was someone I was watching at the time, just studying him. And he was like, don't go to Gary. He's like, go to the people around Gary. And so everybody's going crazy over Gary. Gary. And
Sure.
Andy's just chilling there. And this was before he's the president of VFriends. And he's just chilling and nobody's really paying attention to him. So I just walked up to him, started telling my whole life story. And he stops me halfway and he's like, did you apply for the Sorcerer Scholarship? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I read your essay. And I was like, really?
No.
He was the person that read my essay. And he's like, yeah, you have a really cool story, man. He's like, I would just say build a team, keep grinding, whatever. I think a day goes by. I get the email saying you've been denied. Like you're not getting it. It's not for you. And then I remember I was trying to get into the secret wine party. Gary threw a secret wine party. And I remember he helped me get in. I was at the front of the line. It was May there. And he was like, hey, make sure that kid gets in. Make sure I got in. And there was like a lot of the community members didn't even get in. Everybody that was at that wine party was like, co-workers or exclusive people and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was at that party and started talking to Andy. I was like, yo, dude, I was like, yo, I got denied, but I'm not even going to tell you how I deserve it or why I deserve it. I'm just going to show you and I'll see you in like 10 years or whatever. I said something along the lines like that. And he's like, that's why you were considered. And he just walks away. think a couple of days go by, dude. I get it. I see a tweet. I see a tweet from Gary V, and the tweet says that he's obsessed with this basketball card. And the basketball card that he's obsessed with is a card that I gifted him a year before. So like I think it's important, like if you're ever trying to get into, whatever, you're trying to get into someone's space, you're trying to get someone's attention, like you have to pay attention to what they care about. And at that time, Gary was talking about how he wanted this basketball George, Mike, and rookie card. So I spent all the money I had. I spent about $800 on credit, didn't even have the cash. Bought the George Mikan card. I thought I was going to sell it to him. Try to sell it to him. Didn't work. And this was in the midst of COVID. He was super busy. Like I was like, somebody talk to Gary for me. Somebody talk to Gary for me. Finally get the message to Gary. He's like, I don't want it. I was heartbroken.
Oh, man.
I got it regraded. I got the card regraded. And it ended up being a PSA 5. So it was a GAI 8 at first. GAI was like an old grading company. For those people that don't know, like you can get your cards graded to protect them. And so an 8 is a big deal. 8 is like, oh my God, this is one of the highest scores. Oh my goodness. It went down to a 5. And I was like, well, it's not worth what I thought it was. I made a whole documentary about this. This is documents. You could see it on YouTube. It calls Noble Promise Presents The Last Sports Card, based off of like the last that Michael Jordan documentary. That's where I got it from. The idea. The Last Dance. There we go. And I literally made a documentary about why you should buy this card and like how it's $1 million. Ended up not being that at all, or whatever the case is. Ended up turning to become a PSA 5. And I ended up just giving him the card. I was like, dude, like, this is a thank you. Here you go. And he's like, this is for me? I was like, yes. And I just knew he would always remember me and stuff like that. And he ended up, a year goes by, he ended up tweeting out that same card that I gifted him, saying that he was obsessed. And that made me, he didn't like tag me or anything, but that made me really happy. Yeah. And so I say that to say, the day after he made that post or whatever, I got an email randomly saying you've been reconsidered for the Sorcerer Scholarship. I'm like, what is going on right now? This is crazy.
It's crazy. I see all this going on, and I respect Gary and his content. And I just think, like, for me personally, that's so out of my character to go in and like trust someone and believe in someone and to go whole heart. You know, you went head first, right? Head over heels. Gary's the guy, giving him the card. Like, that's the depth of, I guess, digging into his content. I haven't gotten beyond kind of a surface level and looking at VFriends and all the things he's doing. And I see the potential and I see his execution and operations, like the Mattel and Skeletor thing. Yeah. I see him doing it. And I just have so much respect for it. But to connect at that level, obviously, that's just like when we're selling a client, right? You're going to build a relationship first, provide a need, and then build on it. So no, I respect that, man. That's
the way, I mean, to add some value to people, to add some value to, and I appreciate that, to add some value to people that are listening. I looked at it as like he was Diddy. I looked at it, and this could be with anyone, it's just like, I just wanted to get close to the fire. The way I became a great chef was by working closely to the best chefs in the world. And so that's how I looked at it. I said, I want to go get as close to this dude as possible because I think he's one of the best marketers, sellers, Instagram, social media people. And so if I can get close to the fire, some of that can rub off of me and I can learn how to do this so I could become a better chef. That's how I looked at it. And so that's kind of why I went all in.
Talk to me about that last comment, close to the fire. You're a little singed maybe. And then Smithwick Provisions, what's next for Noble Promise Studios, where you go. I like, is the apprenticeship program or
so basically I ended up winning this NFT digital collectible, and what came with the digital collectible is it's basically an internship with Gary, then also 30 hours in his professional network and meetings with him as well. So I have like one more meeting left in December. I got to meet his entire network, which was incredible, very life-changing. Then I got to intern for him as well. And I asked him, I said, hey, can I intern for you on your team? And so I got pretty close to the fire. I was like, where's the closest person? I asked him, I said, I need to get close. And he's like, well, this is the closest place. So I got there. And I remember I was out at Art Basel randomly. And then I ran into the team and then they invited me along. And so that was an incredible experience. I was still like, awkward. I wasn't sure, like, is it okay if I come? They were like, hey, Sakari, come along. So I ended up being in the car with Gary. I'm like, I'm riding along in the car to his next
This
event
is
with
like, I just want to put epic, like epic flashing across the screen. Like, this is the best
it's
story ever happened. Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, for me, it's crazy. Like
without a
for
doubt.
someone that doesn't know who Gary is, sure, like whatever. But like for me, I was like, this is a dude that I've been looking up to, and I went from like idolizing this dude through a screen, and now I'm in the car with him, right
In
into his next
Miami,
event,
at Art Basel, like,
dude. And then I'm behind, and then I'm backstage with him while he's filming his podcast, and you know what I mean. He gifted me a hat, and I'm just there like close quarters. And he comes up to me. This is all documented. This is the beautiful thing about content. He comes up to me and he's like, "How are you enjoying it? You good?" Like he's like, "Yeah, people think they work hard, but then they get around me." And I'm like, "That's real fucking talk. That's real talk."
I don't know how he does it, man. It's
He's always on. So to answer your question, man, I got really close to the fire, and he said something which was osmosis, and I didn't know what that meant. So I went home and Googled it. I didn't even ask him. I went home and Googled it, and just literally osmosis means just like gathering or learning from just being around it. You know what I
absorbing.
mean? And so I was just around it. I was just around it, and I started to pick up habits. I started to learn things. I started to learn how to sell different things. And the number one thing that I got was relationships. Um, and I ended my internship, and I told him, that was, and he said that's the number one thing, because you're not going to learn enough of anything in 3 months. Even 6 months, you're really not going to learn anything, especially if you don't have experience in it. So the number one thing was just relationships. I can go to the office now, and it's all love. Everybody knows me. It's a relationship there. So um, I learned a lot. Fast forward, I was looking for a job. I just needed money, I think. And I was trying to reach out to everyone. And then I had a really interesting experience with some people. And long story short, it just made me bet on myself. And I was like, and I started pivoting, because like one thing that Gary does is he receives a lot of knowledge, and then he's able to kind of just adjust. And so I think that's with any good entrepreneur. So I just was adjusting, right? So we went from pop-ups to media. And then what I realized, because at the time I was doing, I got featured in the New Yorker. I was doing different products and stuff like that. I had the banana pudding, I had a cyber green juice, which was at different events. And so I was like, you know what? Like the most scalable thing is a product like I called it my mixtape. And so I needed a hub for that. And so I took on my savings, and I went all in on Smithwick Provisions. And so what that is now is, and I've had this documented for maybe 2 years now, as far as like my plans. And there's a web behind what I'm looking at, behind my webcam right now. There's a whiteboard, and I recommend anyone do this. There's a whiteboard with everything that I always wanted to do. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was provisions. I just didn't know what the name of it was going to be. And so we launched our provisions, and I think that's the way that we scale, right? It's just having a product that people can resonate with. And so we have our vegan banana pudding, which is gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free. There's no processed sugar. And then we also have a green juice where there's no processed sugar in there as well. And a nod to my father after his passing in 2021 during COVID, because that's when I started to fall down this lane of like realizing how important your health is, how food is medicine. That's kind of how I got into food insecurity and like really giving back. And I don't even look at it as giving back. I just look at it as living, because I want to make this world a better place, like for real. And I think the way to do that is just by like there's nothing more important than health. There's nothing more. If you like, there's nothing more important than health. You can't even be with your family, because like the second thing will be family, right? You can't even be with your family if your health is bad, because you end up, dying. So if food can help you control your health, well, now food is now food is just as like is up there, you
Have
know.
you connected with any of the health systems out by you for this food as medicine concept, where they're actually prescribing people with healthful diets tailored to if you're a diabetic, if you have heart disease, other treatments, and arthritis and anti-inflammatory? They're literally giving people prescriptions for locally produced pesticide-free produce as a way to
Wow.
combat some of those things, eliminate processed sugars from the diet.
Wow, that's super interesting. I haven't tapped into that yet. I do know that there is like a cross between like holistic style and Western medicine.
Mhm.
There is like a gap there for most people. They think it's one or the other. I think it's both.
Mhm.
But it like food and being medicine, and what it does for your body is something that I'm tapping into. But I'm just being very intentional and very smart about how I want to go about it. And so for me, the first step right now to answer your original question of what's going on with Smith Prism, like where we at is, we're pivoting to focusing on kids. And so as Gary's building out his company, targeting kids and trying to make a kinder place, Damon John's doing some stuff in the kid space, teaching financial literacy. I think the best way to really change the world is to focus on the next generation, because it's the best way to focus on habits, great habits. If I'm talking to a 70-year-old, a 60-year-old person that they should eat garlic because it helps with anti-inflammatory, they're like, I don't like garlic. But if I tell a kid that maybe doesn't know any better, and we make it fun and we educate them, and we make it, instead of it being about this is bad for you, but this is actually good for you, right?
Yeah.
If we can do that in the right way and we build these habits over the years, he's going to grow up and become an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old and have these habits instilled in him. And now I'm going to be an old man by then, maybe I'll be 40, 50, 60, whatever. But now we have the next generation of people, just caring about their health a lot more, maybe not eating as much fast food, maybe not eating processed food and that type of stuff. So I'm really focused on the school systems. It's in the last Daily V episode. I told everybody my strategy, my whole plan, which is to partner with the major food distributor and to target school systems. That's our plan. There's no secret. This is it. It's like Gary buying the Jets.
Yeah.
It's like Gary buying the Jets, right? He wants to buy the Jets.
Speak it out there, manifest it, put it in the
This
world, make it
100%.
happen.
This is what I want to do. Is I want to partner with a major food distributor, and I want to get into school systems to help the school have a better food system, right? Teach them about seasonal cooking, right? Have different options for them, right? Let's get like orange juice that has tons of sugar that spikes your blood sugar out of the school system.
Absolutely.
And let's get really good products and whole foods and like really good
Locally
things.
grown produce for sure. Yeah.
100%. So like targeting a school system. And right now where we're at with Smithwick Provisions, I was talking to a couple people on my board, and after talking to Gary, I told him my whole thing, and he came up with this concept called the lotto. He's like, dude, what you're talking about is a lotto. And I don't want to say I disagree with it, but I guess it was eye opening. I didn't expect him to go there. But basically what he was saying was that your business strategy or whatever's next for you is based off the premise of somebody else saying yes to you. And so if that's the case, don't make that your entire business strategy. Instead, make that like, this is great to happen, but focus on building, was basically what he said. And so now we're just going all in on content, social media. Right now we're about to scale, about to outsource some people to help with like building that out. We're coming up with different strategies as far as like the different platforms, the different channels, how are we attacking each channel, etc. Like right now I do everything myself, but like we're about to outsource and like really invest in myself, get better equipment, get better people, and really just go all in on content. And like that was basically his advice to these young kids from Babson, which is a college or whatever, or a school.
Yeah.
And he's just like, listen, you need to focus on getting your socials crazy first. So if I want to sell banana pudding, or if I want to get into the school systems, or if I want to create a partnership with anyone, or if I want people to care about Smithwick Provisions, Noble Promise, or Noble Promise Studios, whatever, we just need to really build the leverage of building a brand first. And so
There's a pivot point right now, and you're either going to be a consumer of content or a producer of content.
right.
I see you choosing the producer path, and
Yeah.
that is a path to eyeballs, and eyeballs open wallets, and wallets
100%.
fund philanthropic initiatives, profit, you name it.
Yeah. It opens up a lot of doors. And to your point, I mean, you hit it right on the nail, which is this is a pivotal moment in my life right now. Because I am making that decision to like literally a video came out of Gary and I didn't want to watch it because I was like, I'm focused on, I was like, I've consumed enough Gary. I know enough about him.
Yeah.
Today I was consuming Mr. Beast because I was learning about YouTube and, how do you make a good video and what makes a good video and why is this thumbnail better than that thumbnail? Like literally just learning, because I'm a chef, dude. Like legit, I'm a chef. Like I love cooking, However, if I want to make the change that I want to do, and I want to do all these crazy things and great things, I need to learn this and I need to do it. So I am at a pivotal time in my career, and I'm making that bet on myself. I got a text like a couple minutes ago from a company. I don't want to put them out there, but it's a well-known company. Um, and they just asked me, would you want to work with us? You know what I mean? And I told them I'm going all in myself right now. Like, so
You got to pick, right? You can't
yeah,
spread yourself too thin, or you end up with not enough resources.
or it's like you're not going to get anywhere. So like right now is Q4 of 2023. We have about 2 months until the end of the year, 2.5 months or whatever we're at, almost 3 months. So I think I'm gonna just go all in for the next 6 months and see where we're at, and just focus on providing value with people. So we have our podcast, Sipping with Sakari. Um, we have our street content where we're going on into the street of NYC and talking to real people and getting analytics or data or just learning about what people like to cook at home, or what are they feeding their kids? You know what I mean? Or like, do they eat healthy at all? Like
Yeah,
really
no, I
just
saw
feeling
the
the
content
temperature.
at the U.S. Open on the Instagram feed, and
Yeah.
what do you eat at home? What are you guys cooking? Do you cook?
Yeah.
It's telling, right? I
We're
mean, it's
we're telling stories. We're learning. I'm learning in real time. I'm building in real time. Um, you know, and a huge shout out to World of Women. They're super supportive on the journey. We just became a creator part of the creator committee there, so they want to help and support the mission and figure out ways that we can help there. But just building, bro.
hey,
Just like
anything we can do from a seed, from a garden, from a Chicagoland perspective. I know you were at the Wiener Circle and didn't call me. I'll forgive that.
dude, that was during the national, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and so people see the videos I put out and they think that I'm there, right? They're like, Sakari, you're all over the place. And I'm like, I'm really not. I just spaced out my content.
Collect them, yeah.
I just have so much content in my phone right now that I can't edit it all because I'm not that great of an editor and I don't have, you know what I mean? So that's why we're outsourcing people. But I posted that video. They're like, oh my God, why didn't you hit me up? You're in Chicago. I'm like, I'm not even in Chicago.
Yeah,
People saw a video I did in Mexico. They're like, oh my God, you're in Mexico. I'm not even in Mexico. I
yeah.
was. But I was just, making content, bro.
So you mentioned earlier NFT New York.
Yeah.
We've crossed paths with JJ Weinberg
Okay.
from Happy Little Hairdos.
Okay.
It's the Bob Ross NFT project. He was a speaker, and we're connecting with him locally on a number of different initiatives. We were just represented at Silver Stray Social. Him and his partner are doing the um, cutting the nails, giving vaccines, spaying and neutering of pets in Gary, Indiana. We were able to distribute 200 free seed kits to those folks. JJ's a fantastic guy. I'm going to connect you guys in conclusion of this interview. We just spoke to Johnny at Windy City Mushroom. They're doing phenomenal, year-round growing of mushrooms, and I think they had 48 different types between the lion's manes and the champignon, and I'm sure there were portobello in there. But it's incredible how when we start having these conversations, it's such a community that has overlap and opportunities that we don't even know until we have these
100%.
conversations. So it's invaluable to take the time, and I appreciate the time. Anything that you want to cover? I mean, we covered the Michelin stars, we covered the vegan pudding, we covered your dad and Normal Promise, and we covered the celebrity cooking shows, covered the scholarship. I mean, what else?
I
It's
love it.
you're grinding. You have so many things going on right now. I love the energy. I love the operation. Like the operator is what I look at you as. Is we've talked before when we were setting up the interview. We'll do a celebrity chef program out here, whether it's through Rotary, whether we push it through JRS Marcom. We talked about a children's book. I sent you a note via Instagram. JJ's working on that as an NFT project. Tell me what else, man? What else we got?
I mean, man, I just want to, be of value to people. So like, I love everything that you're doing. And, obviously like I'm super busy, you're super busy, but I'm super happy that we were able to make this happen. And, yeah, dude, like we'll figure it out. If I'm ever in Chicago or when I can get to Chicago or whatever it is, and we'll figure out how we can do, whether it's some content or feed some people or just make the community a little bit better. I love the work that you're doing. So that's really it for me, man. I mean, if anybody's listening, just follow the journey. That's the best way that people can support. Just follow the
Absolutely.
journey.
Absolutely. So everybody, Chef Sakari Smithwick, I can't thank you enough for your time, sharing your experience and your journey, the different things that you have going on. This, I guarantee, won't be our last conversation. I tell everybody I'm like a tick now, so I'm under your skin and you can't get rid of me. I'm going to be shooting ideas your way and reaching out. So just, thank you for being part of the Beets, Beds, and Browns journey. And I look forward to crossing paths with you again in the future, man.
100%. 100%. That's love, brother.
Fantastic. I'm going to take you out, end the stream, and then let's cut it up a couple minutes before we head out.
All right. Sounds good, brother.
All right. That was Sakari Smithwick. Tune in next week when we interview Heavy Crowns, Thursday, 10/12 at 7 p.m. We'll dig into Heavy's overlapping passion for hip hop, gardening, and lick. Our kind of guy, right? Tap into our social, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Beets, Beds, Browns. Make sure you gently press the subscribe button on YouTube to get notified of our content releases. And please participate in the comments section throughout our content. We do want to hear from you. And let's not forget our mission to distribute 100,000 heirloom seed kits in the next 10 years. Happy planting. Thanks, guys.